Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you another of my classic James Bond reviews. Today I'm taking a look at the 1997 James Bond film, Tomorrow Never Dies. The film is directed by Roger Spottiswoode and it stars Pierce Brosnan, Jonathan Pryce, Michelle Yeoh, Terry Hatcher, Ricky Jay and Götz Otto. Right. This time round, Bond goes up against the media mogul, Elliot Carver, played by Jonathan Pryce, who is manipulating world events in order to try and put the world on the verge of a world war so that he can profit from this, and his world news organisation gets all the exclusive rights. It's up to Bond to put a stop to it. Before World War III draws ever closer. Right, what are my thoughts on Tomorrow Never Dies? Well, I covered GoldenEye last week, Brosnan's first outing, and many would say probably his best outing as James Bond. I've never really been keen on this one. This has always felt like the weakest Brosnan James Bond film to me. But again, I've never really sat and really watched this one. I never went to the cinema to see this one. So it just never really connected with me, this one. So after watching down and really watching this for this review, I have to say I do think for the most part this is quite a solid Bond outing. You've got a lot of the ingredients that I've talked about before for a Bond film. You know, you've got a wonderfully over-the-top Bond villain in Jonathan Pryce, who plays Elliot Carver. He plays him with such delight and, you know, full-on pantomime performance by him. He's so deliciously bad, is Elliot Carver, and it's, you know, especially when you consider the state of the world's media these days, you know, it's not a million miles from being a believable villain as well. I mean, he's way over the top, but you can't help but enjoy his performance as Elliot Carver. Interestingly as well, and I didn't know this, apparently Anthony Hopkins was initially cast as Elliot Carver, but after a few days on set, he basically walked off and quit the film because he thought it was too chaotic and not very well organised, and so on and so forth. So he basically did one. So Jonathan Pryce got cast. That's certainly what I read in a couple of places while I was researching this film. That would have been. I mean, Jonathan Pryce is brilliant, but I would have loved to have seen Anthony Hopkins as a Bond villain. That would have been tremendous. So, like you say, it has got a lot going for it. This, you know, it's quite heavy on the gadgets that you expect in a Bond film. You know, you've got the Bond girls. You've got Terry Hatcher, who was, you know, red hot at the time. You know, due to the Superman thing, and I don't know if she was doing Desperate Housewives by this point, but she was still, you know, a massively popular actress. And Michelle Yeoh, obviously, who was again hot property. And she plays like the Chinese secret agent sort of thing that's helping Bond, or they end up teaming up together. Very, very capable character. She's one of those that Bond teams up with, and in a lot of ways she's just as dangerous as Bond. So she's a bit of an ass kicker. So we've got, you know, two very distinct Bond girls. While on paper it sounds like some good Bond girls there, in reality, for me, there was zero chemistry between Hatcher and Brosnan. None at all. Apparently they didn't really get on set, but she had a reputation anyway. I think Terry Hatcher of being quite difficult to work with. So yeah, no chemistry there from my perspective. And Michelle Yeoh, she does well with the action scenes and everything like that, but there's no spark between her and Brosnan either. And I have to be honest here. I was really quite invested in this film right up until the point when they team up, basically. Right after the bike chase thing, where they're on the bike together. It's quite a good sequence and everything. After that, I felt the film dropped off massively, and I lost quite a bit of interest. It was almost a case of, we need to end the film now. Let's just do this. So it's not her fault, really, Michelle Yeoh. I think it was just kind of, I don't know, poorly put together, the final act, I suppose, and it just, for me, kind of fell off a little bit. So you've got, like I say, the gadgets, you've got all this kind of stuff, you've got the great stunts that you get here, obviously, with Bond. I really liked his car in this one, even if it was a BMW, because I like all the gadgets that it had, and the remote control thing I thought was really, really cool, a really cool idea. And they put that into really, really good use in that sequence in the car park thing. I thought that was a really well done sequence. The opening of Bond of this time round as well was quite good, where he's got to kind of get in that plane and take off before them missiles land. I do have to say, though, I think the Cheryl Cole, is it Cheryl? Cheryl Crow, sorry, song, the Bond song, is not good. It's probably, from my perspective, one of the weakest, I think. It just doesn't work for me. And then you've got Otto as Stamper, this big, bulky German guy who's clearly meant to be like one of these really big, strong, undefeatable guys, and you never see him do anything, really, up until the end when he has a fight with Bond, and that is such an anticlimax. I think they could have done far more with his character to really make him feel like a real threat to everybody. And we don't get enough M in this either, in my opinion. You know, we could always do with more M and Judi Dench in it. Lovely to see Desmond Llewellyn obviously return as Q. I always felt he had great chemistry with Pierce Brosnan. So while I do think this is a well put together Bond film, it feels like a really extravagant, over-the-top action fest, and I think that is the signature. I mean, you can criticise the Pierce Brosnan era, I suppose, for the over-the-top flashness of it and stuff, but it worked for him. You know what I mean? And I do quite enjoy them for that. They kind of taking Bond a little bit to another level of like just over-the-top entertainment. And I really quite like Pierce Brosnan here as well. As good as he was in GoldenEye, and he was great, he feels a little bit more comfortable in the Bond role here. His one-liners, he just eats up the scenery with his one-liners. He's very... He feels like a hybrid of Dalton and Moore, you know what I mean? With the one-liners and the gritty, hard edginess of him as well at times. And I do think Pierce Brosnan always handled the action scenes quite well. So yeah, while I don't think this is anywhere near the best outing for Pierce Brosnan or the best Bonds out there, I think it's a solid watch. And for me, every time I say that when I watch one of these Bond films and review them, a solid watch for me is a 7 out of 10, which is why I've given this a 7 out of 10. It's not elevated to anything exceptional. There's nothing that kind of gives you goosebumps when you're watching it. There's nothing that you would look back on and think that's a classic Bond moment. It doesn't have anything really like that. But it's a solid outing, nevertheless. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Tomorrow Never Dies, guys. I hope you liked it, this review. I will, of course, be back with more Bond reviews, as well as plenty more content on the channel. So, thank you very much for joining me.